So needless to say, the addition of the wheel to this series has proven to be just a tad bit divisive. But one subject I want to touch up upon before we get into that topic of conversation is the frequency of uploads for this series. It is meant to be uploaded more than once a week, but it's been a really busy week for me. My schedule's always a mess, but it's my birthday on Sunday, and it's like, hey, what are we doing this weekend for plans? Celebrations. Oh, there's a snowstorm on Sunday. Cool. So it's been a mess, but don't worry. This series will be uploaded. There will be videos more frequently than just once a week. As far as the wheel is concerned, I listen to my audience quite frequently. Hell, this series is using Finland as its established nation, as its host nation, because of the result of a poll. Listen to you guys as often as I can. However, on this topic, I'm putting my foot down. The wheel's not going anywhere. If it ruins it for you, I'm sorry, but it is what it is, and I will explain why. And King of the Quaffle, which is a great name, his comment kind of sums it up. Think of it as a no-trade clause. Now, some of you might be saying, well, why don't you just spin the wheel multiple times then, like before the deadline? If you really think about it, if I spin the wheel with Mikko Koivu, and it's 1 year or 2, and I have to keep him for both, technically, if it lands on 1 year, that's no different than me saying, okay, I can trade him at the, second-year deadline before that contract expires, when he's going to be a UFA. So really, we're just getting that decision out of the way early, rather than in the moment, which might take away from a little bit of the drama with it, but still, we know right out of the gates that we're not going to be able to flip that player. And that is the main reason for the wheel, of course, is me not wanting to flip players, because it is far, far too easy to build a great team, even with a limitation like this of only using finished players. If I'm allowed to sign whoever I want and immediately flip them, it's going to get rather easy. The team building process isn't going to be as difficult. So the wheel is staying. The wheel might be a staple of every single one of my series moving forward, because as I talked about it was either the Anaheim or Edmonton, one of the final episodes, if not the final episode of either one of those series, I need new challenging ideas, because it is far too easy to build great teams in this game. That said, there were a couple of other comments I wanted to get to. Josh Cook, as far as using the trade block is concerned, you got to remember, more often than not, those offers are going to be a waste of time, because what are the odds that they're going to offer me a finished player in the first place? So the trade block really isn't all that useful. Mikael Vachonen, I probably butchered that, but it's okay. As far as AHL players being in the minor leagues, there's nothing you can do, because more often than not, the majority of them are players who are already on the AHL roster in real life. So if you think of the Bakersfield Condors, you're going to be seeing Logan Day on that roster until he basically retires. I understand how easy it is to hoard assets and have a stacked team, but how often does that yield a cup? Watch the Edmonton playthrough. And I need help adding Genther, Cole Caulfield, and other prospects. The link to the roster editing doc is going to be in the description or in the comments. All of those players, all those answers, and more can be found with just a few clicks-ish. So overall, I think that pretty much sums it up. We are ready for our next season with this Finnish-based team. Of course, overall, the squad's looking a little bit better, but still quite weak. Mikko Koivu, Valtteri Filppula, both on expiring contracts, and neither are allowed to be traded. Capo Kakko starting off on the second line. Hopefully he develops into a true top-line talent this year. And of course, in goal, we'll get to that in a moment. I'm really intrigued to see what Simon Taival does as well this season, our third overall pick. And of course, defensively, we do have Nokalainen, so we'll see how he does. But of course, the big kicker for us, the fact that we added Pekka Rinne and Antti Raanta in the offseason, and neither will be traded. Ranta's going to be here for his entire contract. Rinne was signed for a 1-year deal, hoping to have been able to trade him at the deadline. The wheel did not go our way. That's okay. That's all right. I'm cool with, again, not being able to immediately flip him to get a first-round pick and something else. It's cool. I'm all right with that 50-50 choice not going our way. So we'll see how we do this year. The main thing to be worried about, and again, why I like the addition of the wheel is when you think of the risk of signing Pekka Rinne in the first place, right? If we sign him to a 1-year deal, it's either, hey, cool, we get to trade him, or it completely backfires, and if anything, that just might screw us out of a higher draft pick if we make the playoffs. Now granted, Ranta's still a pretty strong goaltender, but we have an 89 overall Pekka Rinne. He's probably going to win us a few more games than Ranta would. It's a big risk for us. That's all I'm saying. Now, obviously, as far as these scouting assignments are concerned, we are good to go, unless I'm completely forgetting. We still have our 20 amateur scouts, so we should be fine. Very intrigued to see how the team does this year. We lose 3-0 in our opening game. Maybe, just maybe, we'll still be fine. Rinne can try to steal us games, but, if nobody wants to score goals, then what are we going to do? Right? What are we going to do? But, again, it's tough because obviously the main topic of discussion here is going to tend to be towards, thoughts on the wheel, because right now it's the wait and see approach to how we're going to do this season as we do get a trade offer for Pekka Rinne. Sorry, Toronto. Not allowed. Not allowed. He's not going anywhere. But see, case in point, how easily we could have, gotten something half decent. And that was the plan. We leave it up to a 50-50 chance. We miss out. It sucks. It's a sucker punch. Like missing out on a half decent draft pick. Sometimes these things just don't work. You send $2 extra million to someone in free agency. They still say no. It's no different than that little setup we got going on right there. Now, here's the thing. We are terrible. we are not doing well to begin the 2020-2021 season. And hopefully things stay that way. We need some other higher draft picks, and hopefully we end up with them. We're still very early on in the team building process, of course. The higher draft picks, the better. And again, fingers crossed, free agency-wise, we end up with some big names, and we are hopefully let the wheel forbid or not. Hopefully the wheel ends up being on our side. It's okay. I'm sorry. Now, for those of you who have been long time watchers of this channel for whatever reason, because that's batshit insane on your part, what are you doing with your life? You'll know that I have an adorable little dog named Emmy, and occasionally she looks out the window, and occasionally she spots a cat or a squirrel while I'm recording, and my heart sinks because I'm like, here we go, here comes the barking. She didn't bark that time, though. She didn't bark that time. Not feeling it, which is good news for me. 7 wins on the year. We've rebounded a little bit recently. I mean, obviously we were, 1-9-1 early on. The good news is we're not going to be anywhere near the playoffs, which is to be expected. I'm not saying, again, that I expected Rinne to get us into the playoffs, but I could see him stealing us some wins here or there. Ranta as well, who is obviously a ridiculous goalie to have as a backup, and he will be our starter moving into next season unless we make a play for Pekka Rinne again, which, to be honest, we might. It's a little bit of a danger for us. A little bit of a danger? It's a little bit of a risk. It's a dangerous situation for us, but it could pay off, especially if it's another 1-year deal, 50-50 chance. Maybe we don't get to move Pekka Rinne at this trade deadline. Maybe the next trade deadline, though. Time will tell. As we finally get our 10th win of the year against Vancouver. 2 wins in a row. Look out, world. The Eagles are on the rise. 2 wins in a row. Before you know it, we're going to win more than 20 games in a season. I mean, 12 wins, to be honest, it's not that bad of a pace, I have to admit. And the AHL team is doing much better than I would have given them credit for. They still have a losing record, of course, but they're doing quite well. Let's take a look at the draft class. There will, of course, be real-world players there, including this guy's name, who I cannot for the life of me say correctly because of the A. I'm going to probably call him Roddy for the majority of the series. And I'm sorry, maybe we end up with Aroniemi, and it's much easier for me to not completely butcher that. But there are 2 players here at the top of the board. either of which would be extremely helpful. However, if we don't end up with either of those two, Mika Pirnez is also on the board, and yeah, he'll be the backup, or Teemu Hamalainen. Okay, there's also an Italian, but that's not a lot. So we have some decent options in the first round, thankfully. Once we get out of the first 4 years where we have real-world players that I've added to the game, that's when it's going to get very interesting, because this game loves to have Romanians, Estonians, Italians, Austrians at the top of the draft, and it could get very, very difficult for us. So we need to lock down that high-end talent here in these first few years. And a medium elite, not exactly a bad player to build an organization around. Those high elites, there are no franchises unless they are, computer generated, but there's a little bit of luck involved regardless, wheel spin or no wheel spins. There's a little bit of luck involved just in the draft itself. One of the, 3 major factors to building the team. We have 13 wins. We're 2 weeks out from the deadline. The season is almost over. Fairly quick and easy. Nothing to really check. No changes to make, because why would there be? We're going to be a bad team regardless. But I'm excited to see what the final stats end up being, who would have led this team. And I wouldn't be surprised if Rinne ends up struggling out of nowhere. That could be pretty good. That could be, not pretty good, but that'd be, typical. Let's go with typical. That Pekka Rinne, an 89 overall goalie. Granted, you look at the defense in front of him. I think if he finishes with like a 910 save percentage, that might as well be a 930. You get the point. Man, is it just me, or is this sim going very slowly? I know we're about to get the alert of like, hey, you might want to edit your trade block, because, deadline day is coming up, which it's just a day. There's no big thing to it. It's just another day that you sim past. EA, can we please make it an actual day again? Whether with phones or FIFA style with like a 10-hour countdown. Anything would be nice. Thanks. We have the final few weeks of the season, 1 month left, really. Will we hit the 20-win mark is the question. We should be the worst team in the league. I can't imagine anybody being worse than us, but you never know. You never know with the AI, with the hit or miss way that the AI likes to build teams. There's a decent chance that because of these 6 overtime losses, that might help us. We may hit 20. We have 4 games left on the season. We do lose to Vegas. Colorado, we lose to as well. Edmonton and San Jose to end the year. Hey, 20 wins, 4-2 victory over the Sharks. So 20, 56, and 6 is our record. Helsinki, 39, 34, 9. So not too bad for the AHL club. 46 points on the year. Kakko does end up leading the team with 47 points. Of course, played the full season with injuries currently being off. He's up to an 88 as well, which means he should be a legitimate first liner. So Philly, Washington, New Jersey, and New York have made the playoffs out of the Metro. In the Atlantic, Tampa, Buffalo, Montreal, and Toronto. In the Central, Dallas, Winnipeg, Minnesota, and Colorado. Chicago, 63 points. Not good. And in the Pacific, Anaheim, Arizona, Vancouver, and Vegas. So we were the worst team in the league. 9 more wins for the Hawks. It's not a ridiculous margin. Hell, Calgary was 8 points ahead of them. So Chicago, not looking all that good. We averaged under 2 goals, 4 per game. The goals against, though, still the worst in the league, but it's getting closer as opposed to where we were allowing, 5 goals against per game. It's a case in point about the goaltending being able to steal us some points. As again, Kakko led the team in points. Koivu and Filppula both up there with 43. Someone like Repo was up there as well. Simon Tyval, 16 points. He's up to still a 79. Hopefully we have some good off-season progression for him. Defensively, Nokalainen, 15 points. Still just a 79. That's getting very concerning. And goaltending-wise, Rinne with a 906, which is still commendable. Ranta with a very commendable 914, although he only picked up 9 wins in 34 appearances. As far as what happened around the league, we might as well check before we find out the lottery results. Of course, we'll be going right through the playoffs. Andrei Vasilevsky is going to win the Vezina. Dubnyk was up there as well. And for other starters, Lundqvist and Bishop, you had players like Aiden Hill, who's up to a 79. Michael DiPietro's up to an 86, which is insane. And Shesterkin signed with the Rangers. He is an 83. In terms of points among defensemen, you had Brent Burns winning that category by a decent margin, 11 points over Ty Berry. He was also one of two goaltenders, two defensemen to put up over 20 goals. He and Adam Fox, who ended up signing in Carolina. Forward-wise, Alex Ovechkin, 98 points. He and Backstrom led the league. You also had Jonathan Drouin up there, which is a pretty big deal. And then goal-scoring-wise, Ovi was the only player to break 60 and the 50-goal mark, for that matter. Matthews with 47. Sagan, Laine, Tarasenko, and Kaprizov, who ended up signing in Minnesota, is also up there, continuing the trend of creative players scoring goals for fun. Kaprizov's going to win the Calder over Lafreniere. Might as well be the equivalent of Panarin winning the Calder. Although Morgan Frost and Alex Nylander both did quite well. It was actually a really good rookie class in terms of point production. Not too bad. That sums up this season. I don't think we really have too much else to look at. We could double check down in the AHL. I mean, the Hawks did miss out on the playoffs, but a respectable season for them. We are good to move to the end. Of course, we'll take a look at the awards and everything else like that, playoff bracket, and then we get to the first big moment of the episode. Don't know why I didn't go an extra month ahead, but that's okay. We'll get to the first big moment of the episode, which will, of course, be the draft lottery and whether or not we get lucky enough to maintain that number one overall pick. If not, we need to stay in the top three. If we fall out of the top three, that is an outright disaster and would cost us a very, very good pick, in which case we'd probably trade down. I think that would be the safe move. It would either be trade down or trade that pick to get somebody who's already established, and I suppose that would depend on the other Finns in the first round and whether or not we have a confirmed potential range. So let's hope, while it could be more interesting for us to miss out on the number one pick, I'm hoping it's just straightforward, simple. We keep that selection and make the most of it. Washington ends up winning the Stanley Cup. That was really weird. That just would have been the cap information for this year, but normally you have to hit the A button to confirm that. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it's all good. As far as the playoff tree is concerned, Washington beats Anaheim in 7. In the Calder Cup playoffs, the Cleveland Monsters take it in 6 games over the Tucson Roadrunners. We'll take a look at the Stanley Cup winners. Of course, Alex Ovechkin absolutely killed it in the regular season and killed it in the playoffs as well. Kuznetsov was great. Wilson was great. He's up to an 86. Burakovsky, Backstrom, no new faces outside of Ryan Strome, who had 7 points. TJ Oshie struggled, and they still won a cup, which is crazy. Defensively, nobody new there. Of course, in real life, Madison Bowie has been traded, and Holtby was an absolute monster. That explains it. That would explain it. Under 2 goals against throughout the entire postseason run. So in year 1, it's Vegas. Year 2, St. Louis. Now here in year 3, the Washington Capitals take it. Ovechkin wins the Art Ross for the second time in 3 years. He wins the Hart for the second time in 3 years. Brent Burns wins a Norris, so 3 different Norris winners. Lady Byng to Sagan, the Calder to Kaprizov. Conn Smythe to Holtby, 3rd straight goaltender to win it. The Vezina to Vasilevsky, his first in this series. He also won the Jennings for the 2nd year in a row. Masterton to Brandon Crawley. The Selke to Ryan O'Reilly for the 2nd time in 3 years. The Ted Lindsay to Ovechkin for the 2nd time in 3 years. And the Rocket Richard to Ovechkin for the 2nd time in 3 years since we've started this. Down in the AHL, most points was Oliver Wahlstrom. League MVP was Leonov. Most goals for Wahlstrom. Best rookie was Pekar. I think that's Maciej Pekar. Sami Niku was the top defenseman. Scott Darling, the top goaltender. Vieni Vevalainen was the best the best player in general. Conn Smythe winner, essentially, the equivalent of it. Which is interesting, and that is certainly a player to try and keep our eye on. Of course, there are some very, very good Finnish goaltending prospects that we could look to get. Now, here we go. Lottery results. Okay. It's not that bad. We do fall to third. Cerati will not be joining this team. Damn you, St. Louis. That is a guaranteed L in terms of high elite. We have to hope that Aroniemi falls. We don't have the value to trade up to the number 2 pick unless they want to deal that selection, which I doubt that they do. So this could be pretty brutal for us. In terms of goaltenders, Antiniemi retires. Of course, he spent the first 2 seasons here. Defenseman, you have Suter, Phaneuf, Cronwall, Bouwmeester, Hamhuis, and company. Johnny Boychuk as well, calling it a career at the end of 3 seasons. Marleau, Kovalchuk, Louis Eriksson, and more. Also, call it a day. A lot of new scouts as well, including Ben Lovejoy, who was just traded earlier today. So as far as the draft is concerned, we have to hope that Aroniemi is still available with the 3rd pick. If he is not, that complicates things, as the Flyers have added Carter Hart to the trade block. And now you know, again, why it's like, oh, hey, yeah, let's add more random variables to this series so that we don't cheese the AI, because they're dumb enough to do that after winning the President's Trophy this past season. St. Louis with the number 1 pick takes Cerati. Florida. Do you want to trade that pick? You don't. So we are at your mercy. Are you taking the Emmy? Yes, you are. And there you go. If you thought the wheel was screwing us over, don't worry. So was the draft lottery. 2 Finns go with the first 2 selections, and we don't get either of them. Absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. So we need to see what Finns are on the board here that are available to us. Eklund, of course, as a Swede, but we would have had him scouted. So the first option is Mika Pirnez, who's not that bad, but not that great. Timo Hamalainen, hello. Okay, we have a target at least. The question is whether or not it's worth... Man, there are a couple of decent players here. The question is whether or not it's worth trying to use this pick to go out and get a top Finnish player if they're available, or whether or not we just trade down, stock up on draft picks. It is a little bit dependent on who else is available in this draft, but more so it's dependent on whether or not, again, there is a top Finnish player that a team wants to deal. And of course, draft picks and interest and everything like that. So we do have this 3rd overall pick here. Anaheim, I don't believe, has anybody that is going to be of interest to us, especially in the goaltending category. And you know what? I know we have Ranta, but trying to find our goalie for the future might not be the worst idea. Luukkonen would be the obvious one, but there's no way. There's just no way that we're getting him. Maybe as a free agent down the road. Calgary, nobody. Carolina, nobody. Chicago with Spencer Knight, but obviously not. Varlamov, no thank you. Bobrovsky, no thank you. Ottinger and Bishop, that's going to be interesting to see what Dallas ends up doing with that situation. Pedro Smits, not quite. Is there anybody available to us here? And again, if teams don't want to trade the players, their value goes up significantly. So it would be more beneficial to actually find somebody that the team wants to trade. Filatov obviously won't be available. Carter Hart on the block. Wow. Okay, well, they did sign Vasilevsky. Fair point, I guess. But then you got to wonder, well, why would you hand that money to Vasilevsky when you have Carter Hart? You could have bumped up your defense or something like that. Logic. But no logic to be had. St. Louis. And then someone will counter being like, well, yeah, well, you sign Vasilevsky and then you deal Carter Hart and you get the same help. Sure, except Carter Hart's going to be cheaper. More than likely. And we aren't going to have any options here. Unfortunately, there's just nothing there. So we got 5 minutes to try and find a player that we can acquire, or we are absolutely going to be trading down. Not screwed. We're still in a half-decent spot here. Ricard Raquel, you're not an option. What am I doing? Oh, goodness gracious. So obviously nobody there is going to be available. Braden Point ended up going to Arizona. For those who were wondering, you now have your answer. Shout out to Stutzel. I suppose, another option would be, instead of trading down for one great player, trade down for a couple of middle-of-the-road guys to bump up the team. But with a third overall pick, that level of trade value, we'd need to find a game changer if we're going to be dealing this pick for players, I would say. And unfortunately, right now, it's like you would have like a Valimaki available from Calgary, and I think we could find somebody else. And in fairness, it might not be the worst idea, again, to trade for like a Juuso Valimaki and try to get picks as well. But with how little the value is with Valimaki, the interest and how much the value is going to go up because they don't want to trade him, it's probably just worth moving down for the draft picks themselves. And unfortunately, I think we're screwed here because a lot of teams aren't exactly wanting to play ball here in terms of the value. Nobody's wanting to play ball with any of their high-rated players. Mark Stone ended up in Dallas for the record. And at the very least, too, this is giving you a chance to see what's going on with other teams. I don't think we're going to have anybody available to us here. And that is a shame. We're going to have to rely on the draft. More than likely. It's not looking too good. I'm about ready to throw in the towel here because nobody has anybody on the block. Nicoletti is perhaps the first player in a long time that we've actually seen on the block. And I'm not just looking for players on the block, right? I'm looking at who has Nick Bjugstad value. Even then, it's not really worth it. Vlasic and Burns. Yeah, we got to trade down. There's no other options here. So the question, I'll probably trade down to like the 15th pick because the guy we wanted was available with the 20th. So Pittsburgh, I don't want to help you out because technically we're in the Metro. That doesn't work for me. Vegas, it's a little bit of a risk if an AI takes a player off the board early. Of course they don't want to trade it. Oh boy, it's okay. We either go to St. Louis. Yeah, we have to go to St. Louis, I think, and I'm going to have to take that player that we were looking at off the board a little bit early, which means I'm also going to get less back because we're trading for a higher-up pick. Of course they don't want to deal it. Oh, God. So right now, I am stuck with potentially helping out the enemy, or we make a deal with Arizona, or Colorado, or San Jose. Oh, God, Arizona. The Coyotes don't want to do anything. Colorado, do you want to move that pick? I get that it's a half-decent draft. Please tell me you want to move that selection. Thank God. So I guess Colorado is the team that we're going to try to work a deal out with here. And obviously, in terms of pick hoarding potential, there's a decent amount of damage we could do here. And the problem is, they don't have anybody that I want to really maximize this in terms of not having it be just pick hoarding. There's nobody there. There was Sampo Ranta, that's about it, who's an NCAA guy in real life. I need to find a way to maximize the value for this. Again, I could just pick hoard like an absolute madman, which would make sense. But I do have to wonder, between San Jose and Winnipeg, I might not get the player that I want back, but I'll still get a half-decent player here. San Jose doesn't want to trade the pick. This is not the situation I was hoping to find myself in. It really screwed us to miss out on both of those players at the top of the draft. So as far as this pick is concerned, Winnipeg, do you have anybody who is available to us that we can end up getting back? And I think Vesalainen would be the main option here. By far. Connor Ehlers, Morrissey, Truba, Little. Do you have anybody else available? Lundstrom is Swedish. I figured it was a 50-50 shot, I suppose. Lundmark, Sandberg, and Joel Armia, who, of course, we have missed out on, or Joel Armia, who we've missed out on a couple of occasions here. I think Vesalainen has to be the target, right? I think he has to be. He has another year left on his ELC. He had 26 points this year. But I think, and I forgot to hit the X button over his name, but that's okay. We have plenty of time. I think this would have to be the package that we look to get the deal done with here, but to be honest, there's no guarantees that we're even going to be able to get this first round pick back in exchange. It might have to be us dropping down to the second round. So if that were to go through, I'd be happy with it, but I'm pretty sure it will not. Yeah, and again, it's because they don't want to trade Vesalainen. The problem is, I don't really have anybody else with a ton of trade value. We only have picks. This is where, of course, being allowed to trade Rene, whose value has already dropped, is extremely detrimental. Alright, we can either go for Vesalainen and miss out on a first-round pick, or we trade with a team like Pittsburgh and send a number 3 overall pick to a division rival. I think my hand's been forced, and I think we have to go after Vesalainen. I mean, and even then, it doesn't necessarily have to be Vesalainen. I can look elsewhere, but Vesalainen's kind of in that perfect middle ground of having a lot of trade value and being a valuable asset, but it's, you know, his value's not going to be that much higher. Obviously, it's like, oh, let's go after Patrick Laine. That's not going to happen, obviously. I mean, look at that value bar, and they don't want to trade him. I just feel like we've been dealt such a bad hand here. Such a bad hand. It's either we pick Horde like madmen with San Jose, or we go after, wow, Ovechkin's value really dropped, or we go after a Christian Vesalainen. Those are the only, man, we went up to 94. Those are really the only two options. I don't want to deal Pittsburgh a number 3 pick. It's going to come back to haunt us. So it's either I pick Horde, or we look for somebody like Vesalainen and take that deal. And I think Vesalainen's our best bet. Olli Levy's going to have way too much value because they don't want to trade him. I can't believe how few teams have players on the trade block at the draft. It's insane. I don't think I've ever seen that few players. Pick Horde or Vesalainen. I might go for Vesalainen. Or I'll give in to the dark side and pick Horde and really ruin San Jose. Problem is, nobody wants to trade up either to this pick, which seems insane to me. God, the pick hoarding is such the easy way to go, just to get fair value for my pick and just rob San Jose of so many of their selections. Obviously, it feels cheap, but again, it's limited options. And Vesalainen, it's going to be diminishing returns because of that extra value that's going to be tacked on. San Jose, I'm sorry, but it has to be done. And you want to trade up, so it has to happen. We are going to rob you blind of those extra picks if we can. And as far as anybody that I could tack on to the deal, there is nobody of value there. Even then, oh, that's right, it wasn't San Jose. It was Winnipeg in the first place, wasn't it? With the 25th pick? San Jose didn't want to deal. It was Winnipeg. Sorry, it's Winnipeg that we're going to rob blind, even though they don't want to trade the pick or trade for the pick. This has to be done. On the bright side, it's Winnipeg. They're contenders. They'll be okay. They're going to get a number 3 pick, and it's going to be looking fine. But yeah, we have to. I mean, what other options do I have, right? So it's either help Pittsburgh or pick Horde. Screw myself over or piss some people off because I'm just going in for a crazy amount of picks. It's pick your poison. There's no great answer here. So Winnipeg, I'm sorry. This has to happen. It does. So we're going to go for probably quite a few seconds, and I'll try to get one extra first that might possibly not go through. I'm not entirely sure. We'll take that 2023 first. Will that go through? No, it will not. Okay, that's honestly fine by me. We might miss out on a little bit of value. I'm going to try for a second round pick next year, or actually the year after. Is that enough? So 2 first round picks and 3 seconds for them to move up. That was also rejected, which I'm happy with. The less I get back for this, the better I feel, because, again, I don't want to. But my hand has been forced. What about this 3rd round pick from Nashville? What do you say? Still rejected. What about just 2 firsts and 2 seconds? Still rejected, quite close to fair value. I will tack on some extras. Of course, we picked up a couple of extra picks last year when we traded down. Let's go for a 6th. Is that enough? So the 3rd overall pick for 2 firsts and 2 seconds this year and next. Still not enough because, again, quite close is, you don't know if that's a foot or a mile or a meter or a kilometer. Conversions. Damn it. There we go. Winnipeg, enjoy that number 3 pick. I will gladly enjoy those extra selections, and we'll hope that we still have a half-decent player available with this 25th overall selection. Hämäläinen's off the board. I really don't feel like I had a choice, though. So we do miss out on Hämäläinen, which is a rough loss. 77 overall certainly would have helped. Piernes goes 18th to Toronto. Again, Hämäläinen was the preferred pickup there. It wasn't going to happen with the players that were available or the teams that were there at the time who didn't want to make a deal. So I think we still have somebody on the board. We do. It's either going to be Virtanen or Asplund, depending on the ratings. Virtanen, higher rated according to our scouts. He's also a year younger. There was also Julkinen, who's not looking all that great, a medium 9, and Hachana and Vico. What is your name? Ruben Riley. I was hoping it would be Riley, even though we can't draft you. So between Virtanen and Asplund, and I feel like it's got to be Virtanen. He's got the extra B grades for skating and physical. The physical boost will certainly help him in terms of having a higher overall. We are going to take a Matty Virtanen from JYP. Let's do it. So we still get a half-decent player overall of 68. I'll take that for a 17-year-old player. Not too bad, all things considered, but obviously a big moment for us to have not ended up with the number 1 or number 2 overall pick. The good news is, as a result, we have 2 picks here in the second round. I was making sure it wasn't 3. It is 3. I thought so. We have 3 picks here in the second round, and of course an extra second round pick next year already. So the big question is, what else can we do here? Julkinen, I don't trust. A- shooting, but it's a medium 9, man. He's gonna cap out at such a low rating and probably end up being like a career depth forward or third line scoring forward. That's not too bad, but we need to maximize the value of these picks. And the question is whether or not there's another half-decent Finn available. In terms of ratings, sure, we have some decent options, but in terms of high-end potentials, it's a little bit rough. Like, Tyrväinen's not looking that bad, right? But in terms of the value and the max potential for growth, there we go. That's what we needed. Jukka Laakso is absolutely a target who we'll be able to get later on in this round. Probably not with the dead last pick, but we'll be able to get him later on. And again, there are some other Finns coming up, so it's just whether or not I trade down and take these guys, those types later. There's a guy named Goalie who's not a goalie. I'm very upset. I think we trade down here. Let's double check here with the max potential. So there is another elite goalie as well, not confirmed though. 20 years old, but he might be worth selecting. There's a low 6 forward. I hate low 6 potential this year, and also if you look at that draft ranking, there's no chance in hell he's actually staying up that high. So it's not a great draft for us. Those medium 9s and the medium 6s are my best bet to add some potential into this draft for us, some actual prospects, but are they even worth adding? Not necessarily. I'd say the draft picks themselves have a little bit more value than that, and we can fill out this roster with random free agents. So Hakana and Vico aren't that bad, but I'm going to trade these picks. I would much rather trade these picks and maximize the value of the second rounders. So let's see what we can do and who is in the market for a second round pick or 2. We'll keep the Washington pick, and I'll probably try to trade up. So let's see. A team like Arizona is interested. They do want to trade their first round pick next year. Interesting. I know it's more pick hoarding, but I have the value to pull it off, and I'm going to do it. I can't help it, right? I can't help it. I never said it was going to be the most realistic series ever, but again, with teams not wanting to trade players and prospects, there's nothing I can do except pick hoard. But hopefully I can reinvest these picks into eventually trading for actual players. That would be nice, as opposed to having to rely on free agency. So we'll do that to safety net it. Arizona, what are you thinking? I'll take it. We get a first and a third next year for 2 second-round picks, which seems just a little bit egregious, but that is okay. And we'll trade up right around here with Nashville to make sure we get that goaltender that we need. And we might even move picks in next year's draft. I don't think we're that close to being over the limit. But we have 3 first-round picks next year. Winnipeg and Arizona, 2 seconds, 2 thirds. So we're looking all right so far. We're slowly but surely building our way up. Let's move that Anaheim 4th. How close are we to a done deal here? Still no, and I think I'll probably move a 6th this year as well. Nashville, still no. Okay, all right. I see ya. How about a 4th this year from Anaheim, and we don't have an extra 4th next year. I'm going to have to use that Arizona 3rd next year. I'll do it. I mean, that's why we got it. To make a move here. What do you say? There we go. So, might have given up a little bit too much, but to ensure that we're able to draft that goaltender, it is worth it. Right. In fairness, I could have probably waited until our selection. I don't want to risk it, though. I don't want to risk it. And, as a matter of fact, we definitely could have waited. But still, Jukka Laakso, 17-year-old from Saipa. Played for Saipa at least. Let's do it. We need him. He is a 47, which really hurts, and he might not ever develop, but we do have a bartering piece here. Now, of course, whether or not it's going to be viewed to potentially trade him when more than likely he's not going to develop, that is a conversation that we will have at a different time. Of course, right now, as you've been able to tell, I don't know. It's going to be interesting navigating this series in terms of, hey, what are we defining as cheap, not cheap, and what's the best way to limit my ability to cheese the AI? And of course, trading high-value goaltenders is absolutely the biggest way to cheese the AI in this game. Now, there is a medium top 9 option here in Wirtanen. He's 19 years old. Might be worth selecting him with a 3rd-round pick. I don't think we're going to get that much more back. There's also Thorson, but he's a low 9, so that's not really all that interesting. So we really have 1 player available here in the 3rd round. Do we have 1 3rd-round pick or 2? Of course, there's an easier way to check just by going to the trade screen. That is the only pick we have in this round, and I think that's who we're going to take. I'm not against taking a medium 9 in the 3rd round. 2nd round is just a little bit too early. So we will, in fact, go. It's a little bit early, though. Projected around 100th. 65 right now. Interesting. In fairness, yeah, we can pretty much just trade to the end of this round and be okay. Edmonton, let's not go directly to the end of the round, but there's another possibility, another option to trade down, accumulate a couple of more picks. Let's see what we can do here. And it might not be much. Might even be a 5th or a 6th rounder later on in this draft, but I'm willing to do it. We'll take a 5th rounder. It's fine by me. An extra pick is in the books. I don't know if we're getting to free agency in this episode. This draft, very much complicated by losing out on the lottery. Let's see, is our medium 9 player still here, or did the AI screw me by going off the board? They do not. They do not. They did not. Tuomo, Wirtanen is going to be the pick here towards the end of the 3rd round. He is a 64 at 19 years old, which is not great, but it's not horrific either. We go to this pick, 118th overall, in the 4th round. Who else do we have that's available to us? We have this other goaltender who's available around the 160 mark. There is the low 6 in Vitanen, who is not going to stay. There's another goalie. Now, here's the thing. Guys projected around the 200s. They're a little bit dangerous to pick as of late, and oftentimes their value does end up falling off. But those are pretty much the final few players worth selecting for us. There is this other 20-year-old goalie as well as a fringe starter, but it's not confirmed. So I have my doubts over him. And then, of course, there's the medium bottom sixes, and someone like Olli Hakkarainen might jump up, but I doubt it. So in terms of players that we have left available to us, it's just the two goaltenders, both projected to be drafted much later on, really towards the end of the 5th round. So I think we'll be trading out of the 4th round here yet again. There might need to be limitations on me trading down. There might need to be. There's either going to have to be limitations on me trading down or the amount of, say, goalies I'm allowed to draft in a draft at this rate, right? Because otherwise, it's going to get a little bit crazy a little bit quickly. Very quickly. So at the beginning of the 6th round, we need Chicago's pick. Actually, in fairness, we have that top pick. So yeah, we're going to be trading down here again. It's a shame that, targeting goalies like this is an easy way to get it done. But also, again, my hand's been dealt, or my hand's been forced, because I have no other half-decent players to draft here. So let's talk to Vegas. See if there's, say, a 2nd-round pick next year. Maybe not. Vancouver doesn't have what I'm looking for. Toronto. But a nice, shiny 2nd-round pick next year. And a 3rd is probably too much. I'm still going to go for it, though. What do you say? Yep, that's too much. We'll try for a 5th next year as well, just to safety net it a little bit. No guarantees this goes through, of course, and if anything, it probably won't. I didn't expect it to. What about that 2nd? Still too much. All right, not bad. Not bad. So we will go for a 3rd next year. Let's go for a 3rd and a 5th. I'm good with that, because we're giving up a lot that doesn't even really have any value to us, of course. So let's trade to that next selection, the 1st pick of the 6th round, and we should have a goalie or two available to us, and indeed we do. Kai Puka, the 20-year-old, no guarantees of him being a medium elite, but it's worth the risk. I'm going to guess he's low fringe, to be honest. Medium starter, it's not too bad. It'll have some value for us. And our next pick, we have another one in the 6th round here, do we not? We don't, but we do have the 1st pick of the 7th round, so we'll risk it. And the other goalie should still be available for us here, and that will end our draft one way or another. He is off the board. Okay, so case in point, the AI, they still like to take some players early. Where did he end up being drafted? He was a medium starter at a 47. Not bad. So let's go ahead and trade away this final pick of the 7th round as well. It's a shame, but, I mean, there might be a medium 7th to take. Actually, in fairness, even if there is a medium 7th at this point, he's worth more than a 7th round pick. So let's double check. And there are the 2 medium 7ths. They're worth selecting at this point. There's also the low 6 again, but he's going to be terrible. There's a confirmed medium bottom 6. I don't trust that, though. It's going to have to be one of these 2 medium 7ths. And based off of the rating, that higher physical rating, Timu Heikala is the pick. He is a 51. Absolutely horrific. But that ends this draft for us. And needless to say, things did not exactly go as planned. Not at all. And we, I think, will be ending things here, because moving forward, again, we have to decide limitations on the draft. I'm going to take, feedback that I had from other series as far as like, hey, maybe this is how you want to handle trading. Take input as well from the comment section this time out. And we'll mark things down, because again, I do want limitations. I don't think I'm going to want to draft that many goaltenders again, even if, they weren't all medium elites at least, which we've had in drafts in the past, and it got a little bit out of control. That said, heading in to this next season, we do have decisions to make, whether or not someone like Koivu and Pekka Rinne come back. Decent chance that I'm, probably re-sign them, both to 1-year deals, all to 1-year deals, and look to hopefully be allowed to flip them, even though they're not going to be worth all that much. Obviously, Koivu has dropped significantly since we've signed him, and we already had seen that Pekka Rinne's value had dropped. He's still an 86, but he's probably going to drop even more heading into the next season. In the next episode, we go through the offseason. I'll probably sim the season as well. We'll be able to get through that relatively quickly. I hope you enjoyed this one. The wheel didn't make an appearance. It will in the next one when we go through free agency. But yeah, this episode will go down as a bit of an L for us, having missed out thanks to the wonders of the draft lottery.